Anarchy in the UK. The Labour Party takes over the parliament, beating the Tories. Why this happened? Today we discuss.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
Recently, we had the election on the parliament of the UK, and the results were that the Labour Party, the quote-unquote left-leaning party in the United Kingdom, they won by a landslide against the Conservative Party, and the results were, surprisingly good. I mean, not as surprising, but the manner, the way that it expressed itself on the parliament, it was something to be seen. And right now, the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is Sir Keir Starmer, that he, of course, is the leader of the Labour Party, and that, of course, provoked the resignation of the Conservative leader, the former Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Now, the surprise is not that the Labour Party, that it was poised to take over on the election, on parliament, but actually the way and the numbers that we got at the end. The Labour Party needed 326 seats on the parliament, and they were able to harness 412. That meant a swing of 211 new seats for the Labour Party. Meanwhile, the Conservative Party, they were able to harness only 121 seats on the UK Parliament. That is a swing of minus 250 seats, of course, on the Parliament. One of the most notable losses on the Parliament were the former Prime Minister Liz Truss, Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Penny Mordaunt. And even Jeremy Corbyn, that he was the former leader of the Labour Party, right now an independent, he was able to retain his seat on the Parliament, being an independent. Also, one notable victory was from Nigel Farage, this particular extreme right-wing politician in the UK, that he was able to get a seat on the Parliament for himself on his 8th attempt, using his new party, the Reformed UK. So with this victory, the Labour Party and his leader, Sir Keir Starmer, right now is the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He ended, and the Labour Party ended a streak of 14 years of the Conservatives in power. And why that happened, and the reason is very simple. The performance for basically every social, economic, and political issue in the UK, the performance of the Tories was lackluster, to say the least, on those particular 14-year span. And today we are going to review how that happened, what happened on those 14 years. So the streak of the Tories starts on 2010, when David Cameron, he is appointed as the Prime Minister of the UK, and actually he served recently as the Foreign Minister for the government of Rishi Sunak. And basically, David Cameron, he had a very decent performance as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He actually ended a streak of 8 years of the Labour Party, that they had one of the most notorious prime ministers on that particular span, Tony Blair. And they also had Gordon Brown, that he had, let's say, some mediocre results as a PM. David Cameron, actually, he had a very decent performance regarding economics. Remember, in 2010, that was right after the great financial crisis of 2008, that, of course, that created mayhem for most economies all over the world, and the United Kingdom was no exception. The economic policies of David Cameron were actually quite good. He was fiscally responsible, Meanwhile, the European Union, back then, the UK was part of the European Union, but the rest of the European Union, they appeal more to fiscal spending. Meanwhile, Cameron appealed more to being fiscally responsible, implementing more austerity, but not as draconian. And also he was pro-business, pro-foreign direct investment. And actually he had that period from, let's say, 2010 and 2015 actually was quite good for the performance of the British economy. However, on 2015, Cameron got cocky, I have to say it, and it came the debacle of the UK thanks to the Brexit proposal. And back then, in 2015, the Tories, they won on a landslide on those elections back then, and David Cameron, after this particular political movement and pushback from the British society against being in the European Union, that created, of course, a lot of political turmoil and a lot of protests, and the sentiment of a big part of the UK electorate was Euro-sceptic and being against of the United Kingdom to be part of the European Union. Now, this particular sentiment of the Brexit was thanks to different kinds of groups. I mean, most of the political groups were actually moderate, and they wanted to remain on the European Union. Also, we had during Cameron's tenure as a PM the referendum of Scotland in order to Scotland should remain on the UK. That, of course, that happened. Scotland still part of the United Kingdom. That manifested on a referendum for the British voters in order to vote if they wanted to stay on the European Union or just flat out being quote-unquote independent. And what ended up happening on 2016 is that on a particular upset, the referendum of leaving the European Union for UK voters, actually that proposal passed and won, and hence David Cameron was, the responsible in order to implement the exit of the United Kingdom from the European Union, quote unquote, the Brexit. Of course, David Cameron, afterwards, he needed to resign and leave their functions as Prime Minister, and he was succeeded by this particular lady, Theresa May. And now, the shiny, brand new Prime Minister, Theresa May, the second female to become the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom after Margaret Thatcher just took the helm of being the UK most notorious politician. However, Theresa, she is way far from being the world Margaret, and she was poised, actually she was promoting in order to the United Kingdom to do a soft Brexit, whatever that means. And well, what happened is on the next 3 years, Theresa May went first, of course, negotiating with the particular parliament in order to establish a proposal to the European Union. Meanwhile, the European Union used to reject every time these particular proposals. What happened also is that on 2017, the UK had another election of the parliament. On this particular case, the Conservatives, the Tories, kept the power. However, not with the legal majority. They had to caucus with the Northern Ireland Party, the NUP. So basically, this particular tenure of Theresa May was just a back and forth between the UK Parliament and also the EU authorities on Brussels, and that did not end exactly well. Because something that we have to understand about Brexit, and if you are a British guy, please, or gal, please bear with me, most of the motivations about the Brexit was thanks to racism and xenophobia. And I have to say, also, I understand all of the bad consequences of the European Union. I'm not a big fan of the European Union regarding regulations and bureaucracy and that kind of thing. However, the European Union regarding economics is a net positive, especially for the UK, because what happens is that your biggest trading partner, that is the EU as a whole, you have it closely. Basically, you have the same regulations that, of course, I know is not very fancy. However, you have access to free trade with your biggest client, your biggest trading partner. However, some people in the UK have issues, yet again, with migration and that kind of thing. However, it was legal migration mostly from the European Union. Places like Portugal and Poland and Romania, places like that. And of course, you have to suck up that they have, quote unquote, legal right to move from their countries within the European Union to the UK legally. That's, quote unquote, legal migration, by the way. And also, basically, the Brexit was motivated thanks to racism and xenophobia. And what ended up happening is that first, let's see the chart of the voting of the Brexit referendum. First, you have to see on the map that it was a toss-up, it was a nail-biter, and actually most of the people, usually the more educated people, the more sophisticated people, voted actually for remaining in the European Union, and usually on the extremes of the population, both of the most wealthy, most affluent, some of them of the population, but also most of the, let's say, the labor class, those were the ones that were in favor in order to vote for Brexit, leaving the European Union. And they don't like, some racism, some xenophobia influentiate that particular voting. Okay, it is what it is. Now, the issue is that many people actually argue, and I have some back and forth with some my peers regarding Brexit, is because they say that it's not thanks to racism and xenophobia, and I strongly suggest that it is, because I remember that one of the proposals that Theresa May delivered to the authorities in Brussels, she said that she wants to keep everything as it is, as it was when the UK was part of the EU. However, just eliminated migration. And the European Union said, Theresa, screw you. So basically, this is just racism and xenophobia. You want the money, you want the trade, but you don't want the people. And that's not how things work. And of course, also, I know that the European Union authorities were very motivated in order to cause the most pain possible for the UK authorities, because they want to eliminate incentives for a future exit of other European Union nations. And that's understandable. A little bit evil, but understandable. And after a lackluster performance of Theresa May, after a 3-year tenure as the PM, that, I'm sorry, I don't know if you are a big fan of Theresa May, but more that looking like the prime minister of a country as important as the United Kingdom, she looked like the president of a banana republic with a fancy British accent. So I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. And then in 2019, she is succeeded by one of the biggest political animals of the United Kingdom, the former mayor of London, Boris Johnson. Now, Boris, I thought, I'm not a big fan of Boris, but I think that he did, a decent, mediocre tenure as a prime minister. Also, he was responsible of implementing the Brexit officially, and that happened on 2020. Also, Johnson had to live with the situation during the pandemic, the COVID, that kind of thing. Also, he had to deal with the consequences, the economic consequences of leaving the European Union. Also, he had to face the particular situation in Hong Kong, and the UK actually offered residency for the people of Hong Kong. Remember, Hong Kong used to be a British-managed territory and then went to China on the 90s. And after some political turmoil with China and the Hong Kong residents, the UK offered, some help regarding residency and that kind of thing. And I think actually it's a good thing. So good for the UK, for Boris Johnson, and for the Tories. So something that I actually applaud. However, the performance of Boris Johnson as the PM got deteriorated very, very quickly. Also, the situation with COVID, remember that was, kind of a mayhem for everyone. Back then, the UK was no exception. The restrictions, the mobility, and the lockdowns and that kind of thing, that were were terrible all over the world, and the UK is not like it was the worst place for spending the, let's say, the pandemic, but still lackluster, and the results manifested itself, and also that deteriorated a lot the public sentiment against Boris Johnson. And on 2022, Boris Johnson eventually resigns as the PM of the United Kingdom and leaves the door open for this particular lady, Liz Truss. She became the third female prime minister in the UK, just after Margaret Thatcher and, of course, recently Theresa May. Something I have to say that actually from this bunch of conservative PMs, I like a lot Liz a lot. I like Liz Truss. I like his views, his policies, and that kind of thing. She's probably the person that I like the most. If I were a voter on the United Kingdom, probably I will vote for her. Now, here's the issue with this. Regarding her economic views, I support it a lot. I like free market capitalism and that kind of thing. And also, I think that Liz, on other issues, she has her heart on the right place. However, the thing about that I see, this is just outside looking in, for Liz, is that she's a terrible politician. Regarding that, she's very incoherent between her actions and her policies, and also most likely she's not very good negotiating her particular views and policies in order to be implemented, and that's something very important on a particular system that, of course, they have on the United Kingdom, that is a parliamentary election, so it's a congressional election rather than just a straight-up presidential election. So Liz had, of course, a couple of records of her own. First, she is the shortest tenure prime minister in history in the United Kingdom, and also she is the first prime minister after the death of Queen Elizabeth II. God save the Queen, God save the King. Now, what happened with Truss is regarding her policies. For instance, one of her stands is that she's in favor of nuclear war with China, something like that. But at the same time, she's very good friends with Saudi Arabia. That is, it's incoherent. I don't have anything against China and Saudi Arabia. I know there are a couple issues on those places. But anyways, something incoherent. This is just about politics and economics, and this is the most incoherent thing that I'm seeing from a politician regarding economics. Basically, she wanted to implement a tax reduction that will increase on the future the tax revenue for the UK. And that actually is a good plan, by the way. On economic theory, if you reduce taxes, you're gonna increase the tax revenue on the future. However, here's the issue with Liz, is that at the same token, she wanted to increase quickly public spending at the same time, and that this doesn't add up. You need time in order to implement these policies, and then get higher tax revenue, and then if you are fiscally responsible, maybe increase a little bit public spending. However, that's not how Liz wanted. Liz wanted all, and that blow her back, and that's why she had to resign less than 2 months as a prime minister. And then on 2022, we had Rishi Sunak, the flamboyant new prime minister of the United Kingdom, until just a few weeks ago. And when I saw the first time Rishi as the prime minister of the UK, I said, that's a cry for help. This is over for the Tories. Let's start talking about a little bit about Rishi, a very lackluster politician, and of course a lackluster prime minister. He's of course a Hindu descendant, of course nothing against that. And at the same time, he's very successful regarding investing, economics. And also, he married a very wealthy female that, of course, her parents are very rich. And both Richie and his wife are two of the most wealthy individuals on the United Kingdom. So you can paint a picture on that regard. Of course, nothing against being rich. But however, here's the issue. Regarding politics, and regarding the perception of Rishi, that he was very cringy, he's very cringe-worthy when I did the research and started seeing the footage of Rishi Sunak speaking to the average UK citizen, it was so cringe-worthy that afterwards I had to go and start reading posts on LinkedIn in order to detox. So it was that bad. And Richie is a guy that, here's the issue about Richie, and it is what it is. Richie is a rich kid that is very divorced from the reality of the average UK citizen. And also, Richie is a populist, and is a right-wing populist. However, his economic policies are terrible regarding fiscal spending and incentivizing foreign direct investment. He is also a racist and a xenophobe. Also, he implemented this particular draconian migration policy, the Rwanda plan. Basically, they send the poor migrants to Rwanda, and they kept them over there. And also, here's the most sad thing about Rishi, is that he was very hard against legal migration, legal, qualified, valuable migration. For instance, he is very harsh against international students in the UK. He made more draconian to access to tourist visas in order to visit the United Kingdom. Very draconian in order for companies to hire international professionals, and so on and so on and so on. So the migration policies of Rishi are horrendous, say the least, and that's when you have horrendous migration consequences. Also, regarding economics, he's a right-winger. However, regarding free market, he's not necessarily a libertarian. His economic policies are horrendous, lackluster, and you can see that actually the United Kingdom has not recovered neither from COVID and from Brexit. And that's why the United Kingdom, on the past half a decade or something, they have been, regarding GDP and economic output, they are having lackluster results because the Tories have implemented lackluster economic policies. So after 14 years, we have a new prime minister, is Sir Keir Starmer. And this particular gentleman that, I'm going to be honest, I didn't know much about him until just a few weeks. He is the successor of Jeremy Corbyn as the leader of the Labour Party. Remember that during almost a decade, Jeremy Corbyn, that this particular individual is an extreme right-wing socialist, quote-unquote, political leader and also representative of the parliament. And this particular gentleman, according to the right-wingers, he is the Antichrist. I particularly don't like Jeremy Corbyn that much. No, I don't like him at all, actually. I have to be fair. However, the issue with Jeremy, for the interest of the Labour Party, he was too draconianly left-leaning, and that it was impossible to create some sort of communion, some sort of, concord on the parliament, and also with other political allies. So on 2020, the major decision of the Labour Party is just replace the extreme left-leaning Jeremy Corbyn to a center left-leaning leader that is, of course, Starmer. And actually, Jeremy Corbyn not only was replaced as the leader of the Labour Party, also he was expelled for the party. Now, who is Keir Starmer? Well, he is a lawyer and actually a defendant of human rights causes. He worked as a lawyer, and basically throughout his adult life, he comes from a labor family, a blue-collar family, middle-class family, so he understands a little bit better how is the situation for the average UK citizen compared to most of the representatives of the Conservative Party. And afterwards, he dedicated most of his life, serving as a lawyer for human rights causes. And actually, he was knighted by the Crown on 2014, hence Sir Keir Starmer. Now, afterwards, he started engaging in politics with the Labour Party, and he rises pretty rapidly on the Labour Party, and of course, takes over Jeremy Corbyn's position. Now, today, according to the policies that he wants to implement, apparently are not draconian, but still, a little bit socialist, if you catch my drift. He mentioned right away that his platform will be pro-business and pro-worker. He doesn't intend to raise taxes both for businesses and also for individual workers. But also he mentions that he wants to increase a little bit public spending regarding the NHS, the healthcare system of the UK, and also increase public spending on other things. But also, this is something that I like about Kit, is that he mentions that he will not go in debt, the UK treasure, in order to spend on everyday things. He wants to, if he decides and he's able, loans, international loans, is for productivity, increasing, investing in productivity, and not everyday expenses or welfare. I'm going to close saying this, that I love the UK. Actually, London is one of my favorite cities of the world, and I wish the best for my UK friends. Actually, some of my clients come from the United Kingdom, and I wish them the best. Most of them excellent people. Now, the issue with the Tories is that they are, lackluster politicians, to say the least. The best thing that I can say. So the Tories have to, raise their game because it's terrible right now. And also, I have to go with the Labour Party, enthusiast, is that I hope the best. I hope that Starmer has a very good economic performance. If he doesn't, I will be discussing here on years to come.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.